a significant display of military mobility and coordination, the United States has once again expanded its presence along NATO's eastern flank. This week, a new wave of armored vehicles, support equipment, and aviation assets arrived in Poland, part of Washington's continuing effort to reinforce NATO allies and provide direct logistical support to Ukraine. The deployment was carried out via large ocean-going sea-lift vessels operated by ARC, American Roll-On Roll-Off Carrier. These specialized ships are capable of transporting massive amounts of heavy equipment, including tanks, Stryker armored fighting vehicles, fuel trucks, logistical vehicles, and even helicopters. Once docked at European ports, these assets are rapidly unloaded and pushed forward by rail and road convoys. The latest operation saw an impressive array of armored fighting vehicles rolling down the ramps, supported by engineering equipment, supply trucks, and rotary wing aircraft ready to be assembled and flown into operational zones. Witnesses on the ground described a seemingly endless convoy of green and tan-painted vehicles moving off the docks and into staging areas in Poland. But the most striking aspect of this deployment is its speed. Within hours of arrival, the convoys were already moving eastward, making their way through Poland and heading toward Ukraine. This rapid transfer demonstrates not only the U.S. Army's ability to mobilize, but also the infrastructure NATO has built in Eastern Europe to accommodate these large-scale operations. Military officials confirmed that the deployment includes an armored brigade combat team, supported by combat aviation elements. The mix of Stryker infantry carriers, Bradley fighting vehicles, Abrams tanks, and UH-60 Black Hawk helicopters underscores the U.S. commitment to ensuring that both NATO and Ukraine remain well supplied with heavy equipment in the face of ongoing Russian aggression. For local populations in Poland, the sight of American armored columns and helicopters overhead has become a visible symbol of reassurance. But for Moscow, these movements send a very different signal. NATO's eastern flank is not only defended, it is constantly reinforced, with forces able to flow in from across the Atlantic in a matter of days. What does this latest deployment tell us? On the surface, it's another routine rotation of American forces into Europe. But if we look deeper, it reflects several key realities of modern warfare and U.S. strategy. First, the reliance on ARC sea-lift vessels highlights a critical but often overlooked part of military power: logistics. Armored vehicles, helicopters, and support trucks are useless unless they can be moved quickly and efficiently across oceans. The ability to load entire brigades onto massive roll-on roll-off ships in the United States and then have them arrive fully operational in Poland just days later is a cornerstone of American power projection. Without this maritime lift capability, NATO's ability to reinforce its eastern flank would be severely limited. Second, the speed of the deployment shows how far NATO has come in preparing Eastern Europe as a staging ground. Over the last decade, Poland has invested heavily in transport corridors, rail capacity, and military infrastructure, such as pre-positioned depots in Powidz and forward command centers in Poznan. These upgrades allow heavy equipment to flow eastward at unprecedented speed. What once took weeks can now be accomplished in days. Third, the choice of equipment is telling. The U.S. didn't just send light vehicles, it sent armored formations supported by helicopters. This is not symbolic. It is a combat-capable force designed to deter and, if necessary, fight. The presence of Abrams tanks, Bradleys, and Blackhawks means this deployment can plug directly into Ukrainian needs or NATO defensive operations. But perhaps most importantly, this operation demonstrates the U.S. and NATO's long-term commitment. Russia has attempted to exploit the narrative that Western support for Ukraine is fading. Deployments like this counter that narrative directly. They show that the transatlantic alliance is not just talking about support, it is physically delivering armor, mobility, and combat aviation into the region. From a broader perspective, this deployment is also a reminder of how modern wars are fought far beyond the battlefield. Every convoy, every ship, every helicopter that arrives in Europe represents not only military strength but also political will and strategic signaling. The ability to keep these flows steady, month after month, year after year, may ultimately prove more decisive than any single battle. In short, what we are seeing in Poland today is not just the arrival of vehicles. It is the arrival of assurance, deterrence, and capability, all carried across the ocean on the decks of ARC sea-lift vessels, unloaded at European ports, and now rolling steadily toward Ukraine.